Esteemed colleagues, once again, good afternoon. We're going to talk about the topic Ukraine political prisoner in the Russian Federation, appeal and further steps. Speakers here, Piotr Zaikin, lawyer Yuriy Yatsenko, Sergiy Yatsenko, father Yuriy Yatsenko, Mariya Tomak, journalist at the Center of Civil Liberties, Euromaidan SOS volunteer, if everything will be okay. Also, Elena will be on Skype from Russian Federation, Russian human rights activist. You are welcome here. On 27th, next Monday, on the 27th of April, there will be consideration of appeal of the Sverdlovsk city of Belgorod, the case against one of the political prisoners, Yuriy Yatsenko. He was absolutely unlawfully accused or charged according to the legislation of the keeping of explosive. We are talking now, in fact, some of the package of the hunting powder. A small amount of that, 2.5 grams, something like that, and 40 gram. So this package is smaller than this subject, which you can see on the rostrum. A very strange position was initially, if you're talking about the pre-trial investigation. He was charged with the keeping or holding of this powder. Fortunately enough, we persuaded the investigators that they do not have any evidence, physical, material evidence, that Yuri could cross the border under the circumstances they indicated. However, one of the charges, holding of the explosion, still holds regarding this powder. It was unprecedented in its strict verdict passed. I was shocked, I was amazed, because we are talking, even if he had this powder, for this kind of crime, punishments are symbolic as a rule, and is not associated with the deprivation of liberty, because this is a medium grave crime, and to take into consideration rather a mass scale amnesty on the eve of the Victory Day, that was unreasonable to pass such a verdict. But anyway, we insisted upon his absolute innocence. According to Article 223 of the Russian Federation legislation, there was decriminalization of the illegal trafficking of hunting ammunition. So if he was detained with the hunting cartridges, he wouldn't have been, let's say, accused of anything, because this is not a crime according to the Russian legislation. I draw your attention to the fact that Yuri, allegedly, they found the commercial package of 40 gram weight. Nothing was added or taken away, and allegedly, at the moment it was found, it was intact. So within the framework of this criminal case, they provided the explosive expertise, and the experts said that the substance which was found, allegedly found, I emphasize, because Yuri does not confess that this is the powder, it belongs to him. But anyway, expert did not draw a conclusion that this is an explosive, but just powder. And answer the experts' question whether this is explosive substance or not. I'm going to quote what he said, because this is critically important. The expert answering this question of the investigator, that smokeless powder could be explosive and under certain conditions, when it comes into contact with the diesel fuel, etc., and put into some kind of enclosed, let's say, volume. And in this case, they also need the commercially or the serial fuse. Once again, I said it was absolutely the ordinary commercial package. There was no mixture, no blending, and no detonator of use. So even if Yuriy had that powder, anyway, there would be no grounds to believe that this substance can be considered as the explosive one and charge him according to that article. Nevertheless, in the descriptive part of the verdict, the court actually distorted the conclusions made by the expert and indicated that a substance which allegedly was seized, taken from Yuriy, is specifically explosive, which is could be used for the present effect. In this way, thus they distorted the exclusion of the expert in the verdict. So even within the reasonable framework of description, it can be considered as such. Why mentioned in the verdict that this is explosive substance of the above type, I cannot understand that, because actually the judge was referring to the opinion of the expert. We are talking about the ordinary distortion effect in the process of the investigation according to this criminal case in order to bring Yuriy to the criminal responsibility. What else I would like to point out here, that if even, just for example, this powder were not the hunting grade, but some kind of other, just for example, for the sake of example, it's rather insufficient amount of that which was found. Nothing serious can be committed using this amount of powder. So we're not talking about some serious danger or hazard to the public on the part of the person who could carry or bear this powder. Anyway, the court decided that the fact that Yuriy had this powder, this is again an action of the of high gravity as a hazard to the public, and the verdict was passed 2 years of imprisonment within the framework of this article. This is allowed even up to 4 years of imprisonment. But anyway, in judicial practice, there have been no precedents of this kind when a person who has never been, let's say, charged before, carrying 1 or 2 cartridges, when this person was actually deprived or put behind the bars. Also, we have to take in consideration their circumstances, personal circumstances. Absolutely normal person. He's a student. In no way he has nothing to do with the criminality, and he was never has not been ever wanted or whatever. Has never being subject to not only of criminal responsibility, also nor of administrative one. I also paid attention to the following circumstance.
The court decision of Sverdlovsky court in Belgorod, it contradicts to the case law of this very court. For example, in March this year, it refers to the case where they repealed the court decision by Rakitnyansky court decision, because the hunting gunpowder, where they emphasized that hunting gunpowder could not be seen as a dangerous substance. That is, they contradict to their own previous decisions, and I'm very much believing that the judge who made the decision about Yuriy, she was not familiar with all the circumstances of this case, or she was not familiar with the previous decisions of the same court. Also, the court has ignored the following fact, that criminology expert who indicated that this was a regular hunting gunpowder, and nevertheless the court verdict says that this is a dangerous gunpowder which could be used for explosions and subversive acts. Yuriy, nevertheless, during my last meeting with Yuriy, you confessed that he was subjected to disciplinary measures in jail. He was blamed that he tried to communicate with the other rooms in the jail. That's why I come to conclusion that maybe on the eve of amnesty, which was planned for early May in Russian Federation, they are now falsifying fake disciplinary sanctions for some imprisoned persons in order to prevent amnesty. We may recollect an example with Olga Shalina, when having the same chances to be liberated together with her friends, with your fellows, she wasn't liberated nevertheless. And I believe that actually since Yuri's crime is not serious and he should be subject of amnesty, which is scheduled for early May, then now the Russian party do as much as possible to prevent the extension of this amnesty onto Yuriy. Now I would like to invite Sergiy Yatsenko, the father of Yuriy Yatsenko. Good afternoon. Together with Yuriy's aunt, we visited the court proceedings in Belgorod, and very briefly we saw them during the court sitting, and later on we saw them in a jail. And I noticed that Yuriy was disappointed because prosecutor requested for a longer term than he expected to hear. The prosecutor requested for 2.5 years, and then Piotr Zaikin took the floor, and he repealed all the claims and charges, and for me it was a surprise to see that to see the discussion, but the prosecutor added nothing actually, and I was very much stricken with this. Then next day, Yuri's aunt and me, we met Yuriy and in jail, and he was a bit more calm at the moment when we met him in jail. He asked us not to worry. and he asked to write to his mother to Italy that she would remain calm. Also, Yuriy knows that advocates continue to work, and he knows that Moscow Human Rights Organization and Czech Human Rights Organization are involved in his case. He expected that he would be liberated by Easter and that he would be able to be home by Easter. Actually, this is almost the year that when he stays in the Russian Federation. Last week, I met with the advocate from Kursk, and I asked him whether that provocations with false sanctions continue, and they have stopped, and the advocate asked me whether you asked to liberate him because he is the citizen of Ukraine. Yuriy insisted that he is the citizen of Ukraine. And in written form, he emphasized several times that he supports peaceful settlement of the conflicts. Also, I asked questions about the scheduled amnesty, and when he was leaving, he mentioned that he is very much concerned that he might be sentenced to 2 years in prison or in penitentiary institution. I would like to thank all those people who are involved in resolution of the situation, to Mariya Tomak, to Svitlana Ganushkina, etc. And I invite Mariya Tomak. I'm representing a Center for Civil Liberties, Euromaidan SOS organization, and we have been following this case for a year now, and I would like to remind you that those detentions started from occupation of Crimea. At that time, Ukrainian labor migrants were detained in Moscow. They were interrogated about Maidan events, etc. And to civil rights activists, it seems that Yura was detained at the moment when Ukrainians were attempted to be presented as a terrorist, and at that very moment Yuriy was detained. At that time, Sentsov, Kolchenko were arrested, and actually here the political context is obvious, since all those detained guys were charged under the same article of the criminal code. We have prepared handouts for you. You may take it at the reception. Unfortunately, we do not know about all those people who were arrested during that wave of arrests. By the way, a person with Russian citizenship who lived 12 years in Ukraine. He was kidnapped, taken to Russian Federation. He was kidnapped from Gorlevka, where he negotiated liberation of one of the imprisoned cyborgs. And at that very moment, he was kidnapped, taken to Russian Federation, and now he faces some criminal charges. And we try to follow up all these cases. We try to support our guys and organize organized defense for them. Even Ukrainian artists are supporting us. We're prepared. There's visual materials like these T-shirts. Now I'd like to invite all our presenters to the microphone, and we will start our Q&A session. Thank you.
Sipchuk, Fakty newspaper. Piotr, you can speak Ukrainian. I was born in Ukraine anyway. So, did Yuriy tell you that he was tortured? Yes, there were some tortures. What kind of tortures? I'll try to explain it. Torturing actually took place in Kursk, in the city of Kursk, when Yuriy just was detained. This happened approximately for a couple of days. One day, he was tortured immediately after he was detained, and then the second day he was taken away from the detainment center for administrative violations, where he was actually kept. He was taken away from that center by the security service of FSB. One of them was in civilian clothing, and one or two agents in the uniform of this special detachment forces. No, not the usual uniform, ordinary uniform worn by the, let's say, their personnel of the Russian Federation. Not even the field uniform, but the black color uniform, which is designed for the special SWAT, actually, teams in the Russian Federation. According to Yuriy, those were FSB agents. Maybe I'll switch to Russian, it would be better for me. Actually, they introduced themselves as FSB agents, and one of those agents visited Yuriy repeatedly after he was tortured. Actually, speaking about this violation, was a formal thrashing, so to say, of beating. He was taken to the forested area, and they actually kicked him and hit him and battered him, and they threatened him a lot. According to Yuriy, those were quite a serious, battering. Actually, violation was so. I mean, those battered were so violent that he even contemplated the suicide. He had suicidal sentiments. Only after that, those tortures stopped. Perhaps the FSB security service agents, as they introduced themselves, who actually battered Yuriy, perhaps they just were scared of the possible consequences, and that's why the physical violence was not any longer used, but they tried to use a kind of persuasion which bordering on blackmail when they offered him to tell the agent, some kind of information which would compromise some of his acquaintances in Ukraine, or any kind of law of the activity which runs contrary to laws. Actually, Yuriy declined that proposal, and actually this was against his moral principles. This continued for some time, when the nature of that was a kind of very heartfelt discussion or something like that. So he was visited in prison or the detention center in Kursk, and the discussion took place many times. When they took him to Belgorod, this kind of, let's say, treatment, so to say, stopped. According to the information available to me, in Belgorod, there was no, let's say, law-violating actions. Actually, what happened, if we're talking about the violence that took place in Kursk, but not in Belgorod. Actually, there was no material evidence, even formal evidence, which could actually prove that he violated Russian legislation, but unfortunately, they still have a charge for keeping or holding the powder. If you're talking about confession, confession of him, he was charged, he was accused that he came to the Russian Federation in order to carry out some terrorist acts. Nothing specific, no scenario was offered to him to confirm. That was kind of some hints. They told him, let's have a deal. You had some reason to come here. So they tried to push him to actually to accuse himself. But they did not offer him any ready-made scenario. But I suppose maybe those agents had some version which was not supported by anything or based on, not grounded, but they tried to use this kind of approach to make Yuriy to make any confessions. But Yuriy from the very beginning said that I was trying to visit Russian Federation with ordinary purpose, just to buy something cheaper in one place and to sell it at a higher price somewhere else. When actually the policeman checked or verified his words, they found the policeman. They found it rather persuasive. His words, and they were going to let him go. But when the FSB agents actually knew about that, they decided to actually accuse him of something. Did they offer him to change the citizenship? Yeah, there was kind of proposal of this case to tell actually to accept that he was guilty, and since there is allegedly some kind of simplified form when people can acquire the Russian citizenship, they offered to do that to him that if he confesses in the alleged crimes. But Yuriy told him that he actually declined this immediately. There was another attempt to do that, but those were not. Those was the offers which were not accompanied with some kind of violation. Yuriy said that he had an impression they tried to recruit him as an agent. They tried to get deep into the soul and heart of this person. I'm really sorry, but we are running out of our time.